Okay, so I will introduce these awesome ladies. I cannot wait for this session, everyone. This is, we were joined earlier by Rebecca, who is a World Oceans Day Youth Advisory Council member, someone I love to work with, someone I've worked with really closely the last 2 years, but she's invited some of her favorite people on this earth to share this special time with her. So, like I said, I'm really excited to share this next panel and introduce them. This is bringing together 4 inspiring women based in Asia. Actually, 6 now. I'm like counting. I think no, just 5. I counted myself, and I'm in the U.S. But 5 inspiring women based in Asia who are making a difference for our ocean. So during this next hour, they will be covering topics such as women's empowerment, overcoming barriers in conservation, and what keeps them going in times of doubt. I know we're all feeling that way. You know, we just talked with the previous group about overcoming barriers in STEM, but you know, for a lot of us, it might seem like there's far more barriers than that. So these awesome ladies and leaders are going to be sharing their work, sharing what they're doing to remain hopeful during this time, and just talk about, you know, this community and why it's so special to them. So without further ado, take it away.
Thanks, Bailey, and good morning or afternoon or evening to everyone who's joined us. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I really hope you've enjoyed the other sessions so far. So yeah, as Bailey said, I'm Rebecca, and I'm one of the members of the World Oceans Day Youth Advisory Council. I'm from and I'm currently living in Singapore, but today the spotlight's really on these 4 amazing women who are joining me, who are doing some incredible work for the oceans and for coastal communities. In our World Oceans Day Council, one of our priorities is to really increase the representation of voices in ocean conservation. It's just too often that voices of women are underrepresented in these conversations. Women and non-binary people are often poorly represented at higher levels of decision-making in a range of marine-related management fields. In addition, women have been shown to be disproportionately affected by environmental crises, such as the climate crisis. So now more than ever, it is crucial that we fight for greater representation in the field of marine conservation. And this is why today we're going to hear from 4 women who have made a difference as ocean leaders, and just to open up the space for an important discussion on how we can advocate for greater gender representation when it comes to ocean leadership. So just structure of this panel is each of our speakers, I'll introduce them and then they'll say a bit about themselves and give a short introduction. That will be followed by a panel discussion with questions from the audience and maybe some topics that I'll bring in as well. So if you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A box. Before we start, I just want to say, when you're asking your question, you can either address it to the entire panel or to a particular speaker. And if you're addressing it to a particular speaker, please indicate this in your question. Thanks for abiding to guidelines. Just a note, we won't tolerate any rude language and will not hesitate to remove you if we see any harassment, but I'm sure that won't happen. So now I'm just going to move and introduce our speakers briefly, and then they'll take over and tell us more about themselves and their work. So in alphabetical order, they are Christine Amor-Levar. Christine, you want to give away a few things? Christine is a French, Swiss, Filipina philanthropist, adventurer, entrepreneur, and author. She is a passionate advocate of environmental conservation and female empowerment, and has set up Women on a Mission and Her Planet Earth, which are 2 not-for-profit organizations that take all-female teams on pioneering expeditions as a way to support worthy causes. We also have Millie Ramesh Haliar. That's Millie. She's Vice Secretary of the Arugam Bay Girls Surf Club. The surf club was founded in August 2018 and is the first women's surf club on the east coast of Sri Lanka, run for local women and by local women. Their aim is to promote women's surfing in Arugam Bay and in Sri Lanka, to spread the stoke and to inspire more Sri Lankan women to surf. Next, we have Suyatena Puspalasari. Tenia founded the Divers Clean Action community when she was 20 years old, and she's brought together over 1,500 volunteers across Southeast Asia to combat marine debris issues. She's also an Obama Asia Pacific leader and has been recognized as one of BBC's top 100 inspiring influential women and Forbes' 30 under 30 social entrepreneurs of Asia. Finally, we have Tara Abrina. Tara is a graduate student researcher in environmental economics from the University of the Philippines. She is a certified freediving instructor and two-time Philippine record holder, and is the founder of Kapit Sisid, a network of freediving and marine conservation professionals. So that's enough for me, and I'll just leave it to our speakers to introduce themselves. So Christine, do you want to go first?
Hi, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here. And actually, I wanted to share a few slides with you to help my introduction, if that's okay. So I'll do that, Rebecca, now as well. So let's see, here we go. So I hope you can see that now. Are you able to see that?
I don't think so.
Oh, sorry, I have to press share. Here we go. I
Okay.
think it's on now. Are you able to see that?
All good, yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm just I thought it would be nice to share some pictures and some slides to help you understand a little bit what I do. So I wanted to start by saying, first of all, thank you so much to the World Oceans Day Youth Advisory Council for inviting me to participate in this panel. And before I begin, just to share some background about what I've been doing these last few years. So as you mentioned, I have set up two nonprofits. One is called Women on a Mission, and the other is Her Planet Earth. And over the past few years, I've had the great privilege of taking all-female teams on challenging, often pioneering expeditions to all parts of the world, from the Arctic Circle, Asia, Africa, to Antarctica. And all these expeditions have been to raise awareness and funds for vulnerable women. So how do we do this? I'm trying to switch slides. Oh. Sorry, I'm trying to move to the next slide. How do we do this? Oh, there we go. Okay. So just quickly, Women on a Mission focus is to empower women who are subjected to violence and abuse. And by that, I mean women survivors of war, women survivors of human trafficking, domestic abuse, and other forms of abuse, while Her Planet Earth is very much more of an environmental focus, and both entities raise funds for our charity partners through our different expeditions around the world. Like all of you, you all I'm sure know that climate change is one of the most critical challenges facing humanity today, and the reason I set up Her Planet Earth was because I was feeling quite powerless and really disturbed with what I was seeing around me in nature and the environment. So about 3 years ago, I set up Her Planet Earth, while Women on a Mission has been around for over 8 years. And as I did more research, I realized also that, with all the chaos surrounding the news about climate change, a lot of times gender often remains the untold story behind it all. And yet, when you look at the statistics of the 1.3 billion poor people around the world, the majority are women. And so my focus with Her Planet Earth has really been trying to raise awareness and funds for women. And this is already recognized, in different ways. So as I mentioned, when you look at the statistics, women all over the world are most affected. I mentioned this statistic earlier. And also, if you look at history and the connection of women as a symbolic entity around Mother Nature, there's really a strong connection with women and nature for many, many centuries already. And this is recognized even in the Paris Agreement, which is ratified, as you know, I'm sure by, over 185 countries around the world. And they already stressed that, climate change, there's a strong connection between climate change and gender responsiveness. So we've been focusing with Her Planet Earth in the last few years, basically building much more eco-friendly opportunities for women. So that's what we've been doing at the last few years through the funds that we've raised. And our strategy has been to, these are some examples of the work that we've been doing. So we've been raising funds and awareness for Conservation International, which is one of our charity partners, helping with elephant sanctuaries in Africa, in Kenya in particular. as well. And in the Philippines, actually, I see that some of you are from the Philippines. So I grew up in the Philippines is very close to my heart. And we've worked with different NGOs, including in the island of Siargao, where we've focused on trying to support NGOs that help the recycling of plastic, and obviously trying to encourage local population to collect the plastic and recycle them and create items that are reusable and that can be used and sold in other ways. We've also spent quite a bit of time in Palawan. So some of you who know Palawan probably realize that it's a wonderful part of the Philippines, and we've supported different kind of organization. One of them is the Tao Kalahi Foundation, that encourages kind of the growth of organic gardens to help counterbalance the overfishing that's been happening in that area. And actually in the next, as soon as we can travel again, I'm hoping to take a team of female divers from Singapore to Palawan so that we can work on coral restoration with the Sulubay Foundation. Because a lot of the coral in Palawan, as I'm sure some of you from the Philippines know, has been destroyed by dynamite fishing. So this is one of the projects that we've been focusing on. And over the last few years, we've also worked around Asia with UN Women to help women who are generally in Vietnam, Cambodia, Nepal, Bangladesh, to grow crops that are more suited for the soil in their region. So for example, in mountainous areas, there could be projects that encourage women to grow peanut, where the soil has been eroded, for example, or in other parts when it's too flooded, then you can't grow rice. We've had projects where we help women grow lotus, for example. And all in all, it's just to say that basically through these projects, we've realized that, even though women are some of the most vulnerable to climate change, they're also a huge part of the solution. So a lot of our funds and awareness raising has been around women in particular, because when you help a woman and you help her livelihood, it really affects the community. And we found that in many ways, it's a great way to mitigate climate change and to support women who are already feeling the brunt of climate change. And as we all know, all of us facing a huge planetary challenge of unprecedented scale and severity. And if you can remember one thing from my short intro, I hope it is that women and girls are the secret weapon to tackling the climate change crisis. This is what I'm most passionate about in the work that I've been doing over the years. It's really about supporting women and girls. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christine. Yeah, that was such a great presentation and really great to hear about the work that you're doing. I'll just hand over the time now to Millie, and she'll be able to speak about her surf club and the work that she does.
Hello. Do you know how to screen share? Sorry.
It should be just at the bottom of the panel.
Hi everyone, my name is Millie and I am 12 years old. I am half Sri Lankan and half British, and I am the Vice Secretary for our Aragon Bay Girls Surf Club, as I am quite good at stuff like Instagram. In late 2018, the Aragon Bay Girls Surf Club became the first officially registered female surf club in Sri Lanka through the Surfing Federation of Sri Lanka. I live 20 meters away from the ocean, and I've had the best relationship with it ever since I was a tiny baby. I started off swimming and then worked my way up from boogie boards to soft tops, and then ultimately my own beautiful twin fish board. I surf because of the thrill and joy I get from paddling, and standing up and catching a wave is amazing. It's the feeling of being free and alive. The challenges the girls in our club have faced have been hard, and the issues continue to be a rocky, bumpy road. One of the things that got me determined to become a surfer was seeing the total lack of Sri Lankan women in the ocean. It became apparent that there were many local women and girls from this area that wanted to get in on the act of surfing. We met with some resistance at first, but now we have started to become accepted by the local community. For example, initially when the club, was in process of forming, it was met with suggestions of not providing surfboards but sewing machines. But this suggestion has since been retracted and apologies offered. Also, some teasing took place, the local boys hesitant on allowing local girls in on the lineup when in their eyes we should be at home cooking, cleaning and looking after the younger children. This is a fairly typical cultural reaction here. Traveling anywhere for young local females in Sri Lanka is problematic because they must be accompanied by a trusted family member or friend. This is seen mainly for their protection due to the uncertainty that came about in the duration of the Civil War. When the club first started, we had to secretly surf. We'd go to the surf breaks that were far away. We would get into separate tuk-tuks so it wouldn't look like we were all together. We'd show up at the same surf break and walk out separately. When we did surf trips to the south, we'd get black vans with tinted out windows and have the girls in the van at 5 in the morning and make sure they didn't tell anyone where they were going. We had to be strategic for a couple of years because it was that bad. Last year, Australian Aid sponsored a series of swimming lessons. In a local hotel, kindly donated so that various swimming strokes, duck diving, and water survival techniques were learnt, gaining a huge overall boost in water confidence. Australian Aid have also helped with surf lessons and are currently in the process of getting us ISA certified. This will mean that it will then be possible for us to become qualified surf instructors, thus giving us our own money and livelihood, which will be a massive boost to our independence. Those are a few photos of the girls. Thank you.
Thanks, Marie. Maybe you want to talk more? Thank you. That is super inspiring. Yeah, Emia says it's extremely inspiring. You should be so proud of yourself. I think learning about that, I mean, surfing is difficult enough. I'm terrible at it, but just the fact that, you know, it's so difficult for you to even get out there, I think it's incredibly inspiring. We'll definitely be picking this up in the discussion later, but why don't we continue? And Tenia, do you want to give your presentation?
Hi everyone, can you hear me clearly? Hello? Great, okay, awesome. It's really nice to finally be here with you guys. I'd like to share my story just to give you like a context on what we're doing in Diversity in Action and me as the leader of Diversity in Action itself. So Diversity in Action is a community out of divers and those that love the oceans on doing ocean conservation actions. And it is not located only in Indonesia, but also we have volunteers across Southeast Asian countries. And first, when we're talking about diving, we must be talking about the beauty of the underwater scenery and stuff like that. But what I found I'm a scuba diver since I was a child, I found a lot of trash under the water. Things like this, where most of the area, some of the area is actually covered by trash. And sometimes we found a lot of unique things under the water, right? And it made me really think like what can I do as a diver and what can I do as an individual to make sure that I will not find more trash when I do diving. And as a woman and as a leader, my story grew since I was a child, because I used to live in one of the islands out of 17,000 small islands in Indonesia. It was in Pramuka Island in northern part of Jakarta. I lived there from 2003 until 2007, where my parents educate me all about the environment, about the conservation actions, and it gave me a lot of values such as resiliency, adaptations, curiosity, collaboration, act and evaluate. And because I grew up with the nature, not like most of my peers in my school back then, where most of them are talking about malls and all the fashion items and stuff like that, I already found my love and passion on environment. And so I choose my university study for environmental engineering background. And I choose the environmental engineering study in Bandung. It's actually 3 hours away from the nearest beach area, where I thought that maybe environmental engineering will give me all the beautiful thing about nature. But boy, I was wrong. All I think and all I learned was about trash and then all the waste and stuff like that. And it's not beautiful at all. And therefore, when I do diving in Indonesia or even overseas, I realized that actually, why is it keep happening? Not only in one area in Jakarta, but the lack of waste management system, it's happening in most of the islands in Indonesia and also other countries. Therefore, it's actually a status in my campus, which stated that we have to ask every question and need to find an answer. So I really took that on my heart, and then I tried to find out like what I can do amidst about the ocean actions back in my 20 years of age. And then I started to do cleanup with my peers, and then I tried to differentiate types of waste that I found under the water and beach area. And then I grew up as a community back in 2015. And as a community, I gather and grew up until now with more than 1,000 volunteers across Southeast Asian countries, and now it is also grew as a foundation. So I now lead 10 of my peers as staff, as a full-time staff, and we're doing a lot of ocean conservation actions. And our programs vary. It's vary from marine debris research, such as citizen science, and then we do campaign and workshop. We give free trainings for youth, and also not only youth in Indonesia, but also Southeast Asian countries. We flew them to Jakarta to find what we're doing on the islands, and they can get back to their own area with small grants of money, and they're reporting back what are their best practices that they make in their own area. And then we do also have another program such as community development, where the community development program we focusing on recycling, how to make sure that the island is having a circular economy concept maximized. So we make sure that there won't be any trash that goes into the oceans, and also the reduction side to several actions such as campaigns, and also we are having such a social enterprise businesses such as refill store. So the people or the middle until lower income can actually choose a better sustainable way of packaging for their own necessities. And the last one is we do have a CSR and EPR facilitator program, which is we collaborate with the private sectors to reduce the amount of waste that they produce, and also to make sure they recycle their waste where we found it on the oceans. I think that's pretty much what I do in a nutshell, Rebecca. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was really interesting to hear about. Maybe we'll just bring it over to Tara now, and she can give her introduction.
Hi. Yeah. So I'm very. It might be so difficult to come after all of these amazing panelists we have, but let me give it a go. Yeah. So very similar to Millie and also to Tanya. I am actually I'm here because I have a water sport, right? I'm a free diver. I'm a free diving instructor. And actually, this is my, can you see my screen? Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, so hi everybody. My name is Tara Abrina. I'm actually my real job is I'm a researcher for the University of the Philippines. I've been a researcher for the Marine Science Institute for a while. My focus was on coral restoration. To be exact, it's the socio-economic aspect of it, like what benefits do we get from this, right? But on the weekends, I am a freediving instructor. And in case you guys didn't know what freediving was, it's really just like scuba. You just kind of hold your breath and then just go down. So this is what it looks like, right? Okay, so I just want to tell you guys about what my research has taught me, really. I was really fortunate at the beginning of my research career that I was assigned to this wonderful community in the south of the Philippines. It's located in Mindanao, if you've heard of it. It's called Ipil. And this guy, his name is Felix Badon Jr. He's one of my great friends now. He's the environment officer of that little town. Okay, so this is their beautiful island. It's a marine protected area, so they really take good care of this. But what really struck me about this place was that they, they try to really integrate their marine protected area into all aspects of society. So how do they do that? They came up with this really cute mascot. If you can see, he's the big blue guy in the middle, right? His name is Molsky because in their language in Bisaya, mol is parrotfish, right? And so Molsky would be present in every aspect of their daily lives. He would be on the radio, he would be on the TV, the local TV. He would be there for their health programs. He would be there during Peace Week. And I don't know if you know, but in that area of the Philippines, there are a lot of different social, cultural, and religious groups, right? So what they did with this was that they took, can you see the logo? This is, right, Buluan Island Marine Sanctuary. That's the name of the the protected area. Then you have Molsky, the parrotfish. And then in the same logo, you have the three different social cultural groups. You have the Muslims, the Lumads, who are the indigenous people there, and the Christians, the settlers in that island. And what they do is they use this marine protected area as a platform for peace building, for conflict resolution. And that's what really struck me when I first came in, because I was a marine science researcher, and I was expecting just to count fish and to be able to know how fishermen go about their daily lives. And I didn't know that this was something that you could do with an environmental project. So all of that effort, all of that ingenuity, they won the best marine protected area in the Philippines in 2015. That was the year that I went there. So I was you can imagine I was very, very happy and proud to see that on stage. Yeah, so when I left Ipil after my research, of course they'd add me on Facebook, and then they found out that I was a freediver as well. And they said, "Ma'am, please come back and teach us how to freedive," right? And I said, "Okay, sure." And it made a lot of sense because when I went through their documents, I found out that they would monitor the reefs very often, but on scuba dive. And they had to rent that gear somewhere, bring it from somewhere else. And it was a little bit expensive to do so. And I thought that the level of information that they were collecting could be collected just by freediving anyway. So I said, okay, it makes a lot of sense to do this. So I asked a few of my friends, and I'm so glad that I have crazy friends like mine. And we went back a year later, and we taught them how to freedive. We certified them. If you can imagine, I was this like little girl, and I had 7 really big, brawny, buff guys who were the Marine Rangers in that area, and I was teaching them how to freedive along with my friends. So yeah, a while ago I was telling you guys about Felix Badon Jr. This is his certificate. He's an internationally certified freediver now. And they use this for monitoring the reefs, but also I found out that they use it for to bring their tourists around. So now it's like another income stream for them too. For all of this, what they've taught me actually, and what I now carry in a lot of my research now, is that really ocean conservation is not just about fish, it's about the people actually. If you're talking about marine policies and trying to make it work, you have to work with the people there. And I think that's what sets conservation apart in a lot of these areas in Asia, is that you cannot separate the people from the ocean. They're just there. So you have to take them into account. And this is what we know and what we follow in our own research now. So since then, actually, if you notice, I'm not so much a formal, all of the women who have talked before me, they have formal organizations for their thing. This wasn't really a formal thing. The name Kapit Sisid was something that my friend thought of. I didn't really think of it as being like an organization. We're not really an organization. That's why we're just a network of professionals. But it has grown after this little project that we had. My friends in the freediving industry, they said, Tyra, we want to do this in other places in the Philippines. Please let us know who needs help and who we can get in touch with. And so these are now just the fruits of whatever that project was with my friends, and it's still with my friends. But it's just been an amazing few years just going through and meeting all of these wonderful people. So yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Tara. Thanks so much. Yeah, I hope all of you who are watching have enjoyed these four women's presentations. I really have. And now I think we're just going to move it to a bit of a Q&A. So I'll be opening up the questions. You can either type it in the chat or ask it in the Q&A box. And I think Bailey's looking at some questions over on YouTube as well. But maybe I'll just open us with a little question. So I think something that I've heard come up from your various presentations is just that difference in that lack of accessibility for women into the environment, into the ocean. So maybe I'll ask Christine, is that something that because you organize a lot of expeditions and a lot of adventurous things, and I feel like maybe in Asia there's still that stigma where it's like it's not as accessible to women. And yeah, so how have you really championed bringing women to the table?
So do you mean in terms of it's in Asia it's a bit more difficult to bring women on expeditions? Is that what you mean, or?
Yeah, well, I don't know. Do you agree? It's the first.
So I have to say that I've been wanting to recruit more women from Asia to come on my expeditions. So my expeditions are all over the world, as I mentioned. They are not just in Asia, but most of the programs we support are in Asia or Africa. Because a lot of the support that we need to give, for underprivileged women are there. So it's true that a lot of my teammates have been European or even more Western. But we've of course had some Filipinos, some Singaporean, some many other Asians, but I've always wanted to have more Asian teammates. But I have to say that it's been a little bit more difficult to recruit. So I don't know if it's because of the culture of sports in some parts of our region, because it's true that when we go on expeditions, a lot of the people that we meet are still mostly men. Then when we go climbing in mountains, etc., it's not so often that you see an all-female team. So we do get a lot of attention when we're trekking, and we all have the same jacket, and people are wondering like, oh, this is an all-female team, of divers or climbers. So I think definitely it's changing more and more. We're recruiting wonderful teammates from Asia, but I'd love to have more. So if any of you are interested to join me, let me know. But of course, it's wonderful. I mean, I'm also part Asian, so, you know, and I grew up in the region, but my father's actually European. So yeah, so I mean, we're definitely getting very international teammates. I mean, my teammates are from all over the world and all ages, actually, from 22 years old, you know, to 60 years old, sometimes very fit, adventurous in spirit.
Yeah, thanks. What about Tanya? What about diving in Indonesia? Is that something that you find? Is there gender imbalance, or do you find that it's somewhat equal?
Yeah, of course, when I choose environmental engineering as my background itself, it's also full of boys rather than girls. Therefore, I get to use to work a lot with guy rather than women, especially when we do also field works on the islands. And if we're talking about how to recycle their waste and stuff like that, gender inequality is also an issue that we're facing. But in the same time, it's actually something that we need to fight for, because especially in my country, the role of the woman and the girls are actually really big enough to make a difference on each households. And also, usually the woman can actually do an advocate in much a smoother way and minimize their ego on such as sectoral ego kind of issues on each institutions and stuff like that. So yeah, it's also something that I never realized before I got the inaugurations of the BBC Woman, because before that, I usually don't really care about that, even though maybe as a woman and we're doing field work and stuff like that, there are a lot of like kind of teasing from the guys, and they're trying to score us between our looks rather than what we have in our idea, stuff like that. So yeah, it's something that we're facing, but currently it's actually getting better rather than 5 years ago when the first time I started.
Yeah, that's so true, and I'm glad to hear it's getting better. Tara, is that something that you find with free diving?
Actually, in the Philippines, it's not such an issue, I think. I don't know why, but there's a lot of women in freediving. Actually, on the elite levels, you'd find them. Yeah, it's almost equal, if not more. I think there are more women even. But this is in terms of the sport. But if you're talking about like, you know, the recreational in coastal communities, you still really see that the men will be more dominant, especially in fishing communities. Like women are still not allowed to step onto a fishing boat. That's considered bad luck here. So yeah, it's really imbalanced. It depends where you are.
Yeah, I think something that's just come up as well is just that connection between human culture and the ocean. And that's something that is so important that we capitalize, I mean, really, you know, cherish, even as, you know, things, maybe the ocean gets more degraded and it faces threats. That's so important that we hold on to that. I'll just ask a question that we've received from YouTube. So it asks, for other young explorers or advocates in training, what advice do you have for balancing your work and school life? Maybe Millie, I'll direct that to you.
So for me, as the waves aren't great at the moment, I'm not surfing as much as I was last year. I'm in year 7 now, so I don't surf as well as much as I probably should. I'm also, yeah, yeah, it's quite hard to balance it. There are people that want to push you, and you kind of have to think. I focus on school now, and not so much on the surfing, which is quite a shame because I love surfing. And yeah, so.
Tara, what about you? Because you're still, I mean, very active in the research world, and I assume also free diving. So how do you manage that?
Actually, I'll just comment on what Millie said. It's good to have seasons. Yeah, the ocean has, it gives us a bit of time to focus on other things. For me, research is my work, so it's not like it's separate. But freediving on the weekends, it's what we normally do. And then in the city, because I study in the city, we have pool sessions sometimes. Gosh, it's been such a while because of this whole COVID thing. So I have to really remember how my schedule was like before. But maybe going back to that first question, how do you balance your work and your school life? I really think if you're in college, I think that's possible. But as you go into, let's say, because I just graduated from my master's, so in graduate school, you really have to choose a time to focus on one thing or the other. And like I said, the ocean is, it's great to have seasons. So yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah, Tara, keeping the spotlight on you for a bit. We have another question directed to you. Darcy asks, how do you ensure that your research, the research that you do, is beneficial to the communities you are working in?
This is a great question. It's so difficult sometimes to be able to do this. It really, you really have to, I think if you don't know your community that well yet before going, if you don't have any priors, I think what I like about the centers that I've worked with was that a standard procedure was something we call validation visits. So after you do your research, after you collect data and then you analyze, before you publish anything, you'd want to go back to the community and then share what you just did, which is actually really interesting because it makes you it helps you practice, like saying what you want to say with your work, and then they'll validate it. They'll say, oh yes, that's true, that's what we really feel, or no, maybe this is so you come in with your data and your analysis, and you say this was the result. But when you do your discussion part, it's so important to have the community actually give you the context of your findings, and that's what I think that's something interesting to us. And then, of course, another thing is it can't be like I go in there, get data, and then come out. It's like it just doesn't feel right. I don't know, it just doesn't feel right for me to get something from them and then not have something in return. And then, as much as possible, yeah, you have to ask permissions before you even do anything. It's very, very sensitive. But yeah, I'll think about that more, but it's a good question. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks. That's a great answer. And I think that idea of validation is so important. I mean, in these conversations about, scientific racism and things like that, so much has been taken from communities, and, it's really not a two-way thing. It's just maybe DNA is taken or certain aspects of their culture are studied, and there's really no communication. So I think that it's so important that we keep that conversation going. I think, what you were saying about that co-creation concept, yeah, that's definitely something that I try to do in my work, and hopefully, it's something that we can all build on over the next few years in our research. Christine, one of the questions that came in, and I'll direct that to you, is what are some of your favorite moments in nature?
Oh, there's so many. There's so many. Obviously, one of my favorite trips was actually, of course, in the Philippines, when we did a sailing trip through the islands of Palawan. When I mentioned that we had also supported the Tao Kalahi Foundation. So some of you are from the Philippines. Maybe Tara knows the Tao group in Palawan. They have a lot of beautiful trips that are very some of them are very Robinson Crusoe, so we arrive at night, we'd swim just with the light of the stars and get into the islands, and it's like a deserted island, and it's a wonderful way to camp, so for me that's very special, because even though I grew up in the Philippines, I never really did those adventurous things when I was little. So that would be definitely one of my highlights. And then, of course, I love the climbing. I love the mountains. It's not so much a topic about the oceans, obviously, but I love climbing, and I'm actually planning another trip to Antarctica next year, hopefully, if travel can start again. So that's my other love, obviously. I love the ocean because I grew up, with a father who sailed in the Philippines, but he's French, but he used to sail and we used to go with him. But my other love is the mountains and climbing.
Millie, what about you? What are some of your favorite moments? Surfing, non-surfing, whatever it is.
Sometimes when we're in the water, just sitting waiting for waves, elephants come out and they steal your towels that are on the beach, and then they start running off the up the beach with your towels, and then your keys, the car keys that you use to get to the place where you're at, are in your towels, and so they're off with your towels. Yeah, and surfing with dolphins, you see them leaping, and turtles. Sometimes you can touch the shells when you're on the wave. That's quite fun. And yeah. So.
Tanya, how about you?
Yeah, so my favorite moment is every time I dive, because I feel the the serenity, like the silence under the water is really calming, rather than on cities that I need to hustle and then do advocacy works and stuff like that. So actually, every inch of the ocean is really my favorite moments.
Tara, what do you think?
My favorite moments in nature. Yeah, same, possibly same as Tanya. In freediving, because when you do scuba, you hear a lot of the bubbles and stuff, but in freediving, it's a little bit more quiet. So you're sort of forced into like this meditation state. And like just the feeling of the pressure around you, it's really, I don't know, it makes you stay centered. It's not so much that you see everything around you, actually. You don't really need to see it. It's really like what the ocean is making you feel at that moment. I think that's one of my favorite feelings.
Thanks for that. Maybe one of our last questions, because unfortunately we're running short on time, but someone asked in the Q&A, Christine, they want to know how long you usually spend training for your expeditions and how do you prepare for them?
Oh, that's a good question. So of course it depends on the expedition. So my last expedition was actually to Greenland this March 2020. And this was one of my toughest ones because we were biking on the snow across the Arctic Circle Trail in minus 20 degrees Celsius up to minus 40 degrees Celsius. So it's quite difficult to train in Singapore for Arctic conditions, as you can imagine. But we ended up getting a coach. And so we were doing as much mountain biking as we could, even though they're very different kinds of bikes that you use on the snow and as opposed to, let's say, in the jungle. And we do a lot of core strength training. So all my expeditions, either if it's, in the ocean or in the mountains or in deserts or colder places, the most important is endurance and core strength. And obviously, depending on the skill, you can mix it up with biking or rock climbing or stand-up paddle boarding, because we've also done a bunch of expeditions on stand-up paddle board, like in Bhutan and the rivers as well. So we definitely encourage I try to rally my teammates, and some of them are in Singapore, but some of them are in other parts of the world. So we stay connected on a WhatsApp group. And we make sure that everybody's got some sort of training regime. So I give them some guidelines, but obviously people have different schedules and different kind of work situations or study situations. So we just I make sure that they focus on building their endurance so that they're not out of breath, obviously, when we're on in altitude situations or when we're actually trying to bike or climb and walk for long hours. And then core strength is so important against injury. So building your core muscles, making sure that you get stronger, that you can do that through different gyms. You don't necessarily have to use weights. So there are many ways to do it. And so in general, we just encourage each other. We try to do it months in advance, so it's not all sudden. And I asked them to be very careful about injury, because it can happen, when you train and you get injured and then somebody has to step off the team. So that is something I always tell them: you're not allowed to get injured. So yeah, it's part of the fun. The preparation is really part of the fun, and coming as as fit as you can, physically, mentally prepared. Your equipment all ready to go is a huge part of the preparation.
Yeah, that's a massive amount of training. But I mean, I must say, I don't think 20 years of training will get me ready for going to Antarctica. But
Oh, you're young, no problem. I'm sure you could join me. Let me know.
Yeah, well, on that, someone else is asking, how can we get involved in your expeditions?
So I think they can definitely check our website. So you can check, if your interest is more around the environment, you could check herplanetearth.com. And then we have all our links to our social media, and generally I'll post, some of the upcoming expeditions, but otherwise you can just email us and we'll update you. And there are many ways to get involved, either through our volunteering opportunities, events, when we can have events again, and expeditions. And with the other one, if your interest is more to support women who have been, abused, or who are survivors of violence, then you can connect with us at Women on a Mission. So womenmission.com. And please look for us as well on social media. We do a lot of Instagram, Facebook, all that. Also LinkedIn. So yeah, please be sure to connect and be free. Be open and send me an email if you want. All the email addresses are on the website.
Thanks. Unfortunately, it looks like we're almost out of time. So I think, some things that really came up from this discussion was, Tara, I really like that quote you said about how conservation is about people. And I think that all of us have had really great experiences in the ocean. And when you experience something like that, of course, you're going to want to share it. And I think that, just keep doing what you're doing and bringing this kind of love for the ocean to other people, and keep fighting for the conservation of the ocean. So just before we close, maybe I'll get everyone to just maybe summarize, give a little closing remark, and where people can stay updated on your work and how they can get in touch with you. So maybe we'll go reverse alphabetical this time. So Tara, why don't you go first?
How to keep in touch with me? I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Twitter, I guess. But again, like I said, there's nothing really, I haven't really put up anything formal. I guess Kapit Sisid would be, I have a Facebook page, that's it, but it's not really that active. Yeah, just my name, Tara Abrina, on Instagram. I think we can, that's how Rebecca got to me, so that should be fine.
Tania, what about you?
Yeah, just to close it, I'd like to add one tips that I really wish that I knew it before when I started my conservation works as a woman, is to know the expectations of your peers, your family, your couple, your partner, and also my own expectation as a woman, because sometimes in Asia Pacific especially, the role of the woman have a high of expectation or certain expectations. If we know the expectation and we can meet what we want to do, it's actually much more easier to just block out on what we can actually achieve and what we cannot achieve as a woman. So yeah, that's a little tips from me. It really helps me on my conservation work and how to reach out to us. You can actually go to the www.diversecleanaction.org or Instagram on Diverse Clean Action. We're pretty active on that. Let's join our volunteering networks.
Great. Thanks, Millie, for leaving the Surf Club Instagram. Maybe are there any sort of closing remarks you'd like to say?
Come surf with us if you would like. I don't know. Sorry.
I hope so. I hope I can too. Christine, what about you?
So I just, thank you again. This was wonderful to meet all the amazing other panelists, and I learned so much from all of you. What I would like to maybe say as a closing message is, whoever's, listening to us, just all of us should keep finding ways to increase our impact and to protect our environment. I think And this can be, through things that you enjoy doing, through the sports that you love, like Millie with surfing, or, or free diving like Tara, or anything that you are passionate about. If you can somehow involve it in kind of a movement to protect the environment, I think that would be wonderful, because we could all do our part and become little activists, all of us, in a way, because our planet really needs us, and every little bit does count. And does if you can help a community effort, if you can advocate through your politicians, ask questions to the companies you work for. I think all of us, if we all do that, it will have a ripple effect of positivity. So I encourage all of us to do more of that. Thank you.
Thanks. I think you said it better than I could, so I think I'll just leave it there. Also, we're out of time, but thank you so much, and thank you to everyone who's attended. Do stay on. I'm sure Bailey's going to introduce her, but Gabrielle, one of my other council members, is going to be hosting a session after this, and I'm really excited to see that. So yes, thank you to Christine, Millie, Tara, and Tania. I really enjoyed the session, and I hope all of you did too, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, everyone. Bye. Thank you.
Wow, I'm feeling the love. I'm feeling so inspired by that amazing session. It's just so cool. I don't know where you guys are tuning in from right now, but for me, I'm here in outside of Chicago, and just seeing their love for their community shine through. It just, I feel like I'm with them, in the Philippines, in Singapore, in the places that they joined us from. So I hope you all are feeling that. And also, what a crazy phenomena to be here together, sharing this space, sharing our stories together, from around the world, no matter what time it is. It's currently 6 a.m. here for me. And afternoon, maybe it's similar, 6 a.m. for you as well. But I just couldn't be more happy and thankful to be on here with you guys right now.